right, everyone. I'm just gonna check quickly that this is working. This will come through in just 1 second. Fantastic. Let's just make sure that this is working okay. Good. All right. Great. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly and foremost, let me turn that off. This is the first one that I do live, fully live, that is not pre-recorded. So I welcome you all to this broadcast, and I thank you for your patience as we'll have today. Today won't be too long of a session, I promise you, and hope that is not too specific on any details. Mostly I want to give a quick overview about some of the things that we would like to discuss, and that hopefully, and most important, they have a positive impact on this difficult time for all of you. We thought, from the St. Peter's Center for Mindfulness and Spirituality, who, as some of you might know, I've been collaborating and helping for quite some time now, as well as Orchestra Vitae, the orchestra that I'm principal conductor of. We really wanted to do something to ease these difficult times for you, to help you get through it in any way that we can. Sadly, I'm not a qualified doctor, so I cannot do anything to help on that front. I wish that I could. And furthermore, I am currently in Spain on isolation, where it caught me working with the Balearic Symphony Orchestra as assistant conductor when all of this went down quite a few days before the lockdown went into effect in the UK. And this whole time I've really been thinking what it is that I can do as a musician to help people. And this is something that we thought really very hard also at Orchestra Vitae, because we believe deeply that music can have an impact on the lives of people. It has had a wonderful and transformational change in the lives of us as musicians, and we believe that it can do as well for everyone. Not just classical music in general, of course, but as being classical music performers and musicians, we want to have a say. And one of the things that we really are hoping is that in these difficult times, where so many of you are struggling, not being able to go out, not being able to have your family visiting, not able to have your loved one, your relatives, your friends being there to support you in these difficult times, that we maybe in a way can be a bit of sunshine in this otherwise dark and difficult days. So I welcome you all. I thank you for tuning in, and I hope that as this broadcast progresses, that so perhaps will be the attendance and the widespread that we can do. We are trying to work closely with some elder care centers that obviously are taking a big hit with this coronavirus crisis, and we want to be there for them as well. So that being said, today shouldn't be too much about me talking, as it should be about music playing, because the whole purpose of this session is precisely music and mindfulness. And music and mindfulness doesn't have to be this foreign concept that we think, oh, what does it mean? Is it how we're gonna do meditation, or what kind of sessions? Are we gonna be doing a walking? People have very strange concepts about what meditation is, and actually, the first thing that we need to do is that, or to acknowledge, I suppose, is that most of us meditate in one form or the other. When we are thinking to ourselves, when we are holding our own thoughts, we're meditating. If you're religious or spiritual, when you are praying, that is a way of meditation. When you are listening to music on your commute to work, that is in a way of meditation, because we're using music as a way to disconnect, or as a way to get us to a different stage, or as a way to walk us through. So that is a bit of a disclaimer. It is very important that we, of course, understand how music has a different impact in the way that we that we see, or meditation, or how music can, in other words, impact beneficially our meditation and mindfulness practices. Because if we find a way that music can support the way that we meditate and the way that we are trying to be mindful, it will help us change our state of mind. So I prepared a very simple PowerPoint presentation here, if I can show it to you. Yep, you don't need to know that. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is, why does music affect us in so many different ways? And this is something that I consider very important to take into consideration, because what might be very effective for me might not necessarily be very effective for some other people. So I always, whenever I give this workshop, whenever I talked about music and mindfulness, one of the first things that I do is I play a little track for all of you that I've made here in this Spotify playlist, which I will share on the live chat and on the right hand corner of, hold on, this camera, on the right hand corner, yeah, I think that should be pointing in the right direction of this video, where you can click and have it. So I'm gonna play for you a song that I absolutely loved, and I posted about this on social media a few days ago, because this song actually has helped me through some of my darkest and most difficult times. When I've been most sad, most worried, most afraid, this has helped me. I'm not very proud of it, but not ashamed to say either that I'm a bit of a fearful flyer. So this is a song that I often go back to when I'm trying to calm myself and go into a state of relaxation. And the way that I achieve that is not necessarily because the music it is particularly mindful or it relaxes me per se, but it is because the association, emotional association that I have with this track. I've been listening to it since about 2003, and it has brought me always into a happy place, and for that reason I use it. And this is one of the 4 ways in which perhaps music can influence us. And I always say it's important that it's a little bit like your paracetamol or your ibuprofen, that you identify a piece of music that for whatever reason, whether it's because your parents played it to you when you were a baby and you just, even if you don't remember them playing it, every time that you hear it, boom, it makes you happy. Or because it was the first dance that you had with your spouse and your partner when you got married, it's the song that you share with your children, whatever it is, the reason why you use it, have it in your bag of tools, have it as a tool to help you meditate, to help you be mindful, and to help you relax, particularly in this difficult time. So this is the song that, for me, does that job. Nothing fancy, doesn't have to be the most beautiful, you don't have to explain yourself to anyone either. You get the idea, right? It's a song that is in nature is happy, and we will talk a little bit about this later on in this little taster. Like I said, today is not the point to give you a full-blown session on music and mindfulness. We're not even going to do much of exercises. For some of you that have attended some of these taster workshops with me before, you will recognize some of these similar topics. At the end of the day, there's anything that can help us is beneficial, and I just want to give you a little bit of an introduction so that then we can develop it. As this PowerPoint says, the other way that we can be affected positively or negatively by the music is based on the musical reaction that it gives us, and this is slightly different from the emotional processes. The emotional processes have to do with music that we associate with something. These musical reactions are purely based on our preconceived or not understanding of the music. Slightly different to the next topic, which I will cover in just 1 second, called education. I wanted to give you an example today, and I think it's only appropriate to do so. Today, sadly, Sunday, Christoph Penderecki, one of the greatest composers and musicians of the 20th century, classical music, passed away. And I wanted to play for you a small piece of, a little clip from his Adagio for Strings from his third symphony as a tribute to his memory, so that so that we remember, we mention him and we keep him present in today's conversation. Some of you might like it, some of you might not. But again, this perhaps is a piece of music you never heard before, and you might have a reaction for or against it, and this is okay. Not everything is for all tastes. It's a bit like Marmite. Some people love Marmite, some people hate Marmite, and that's not to say that the product itself is good or bad. It's just the reaction that we have towards something. You get the idea. Another of the ways that music can affect us in different ways is, of course, based on education, and this is something that we cannot escape. I have had I'm just going to walk out of this for a moment of this presentation so you can see back to me in full screen. I, for example, have trained in music for the last 24 years of my life, and I'm not that old, so as you can imagine, a big portion of my time. So I'm very familiar with the way that music works. For example, I understand musical concepts like major chords, minor chords, open fifths, dominant chords, etc., etc. This means that when I'm listening to music, I obviously have to listen to it in a more objective is not the word. I always listen to it in a more analytical way, and this is even more strongly that way for me as a classically trained musician and as a professional conductor, because when I'm on the podium conducting an orchestra, I'm constantly evaluating the sound that comes out, trying to understand, is it out of tune, is it not out of tune, is it balanced, what needs to happen, what is going on in the music. So for me, some of the tracks that I listen to, that for some people might be absolutely wonderful music to meditate and to relax, for me, they're absolutely just too convoluted, too complicated, and they therefore do not help me with that purpose. I have here a little example, and I'm going to go into my Spotify playlist very quickly. If when I was doing a bit of research, I clicked in this I typed in on Spotify meditation music, and it came with hundreds and hundreds of different tracks. This one, Zen Buddhism meditate music. If you were inducting yourself into the wonderful world of music and meditation, or meditation in general, and you wanted to have a little bit of something that helped you along the way, you probably might type into Spotify some of these very words. Because when we think of meditation, we think, rightly or wrongly, we think into Buddhism and these Eastern practices. So we think of, I want to be in a Zen state. We use that term a lot, and meditate. So imagine that you typed all those songs, and then this comes in on first in your search. Same on YouTube. I'll show you in a second some of the same practices that, for me, could absolutely do nothing but to completely distract me, because the amount of sounds and the amount of noise there is too much. If I do the same on YouTube, I type in mindfulness meditation music for focus, concentration to relax. Sorry, let me just try one thing because I think I just forgot to when I share this, and I'm learning. Like I said, I appreciate your patience today. Kikwa. There's an option, that I can share directly the sound from the computer into the screen. So I think now you might be able to hear you a bit better. Some of these tracks, absolutely, I have no problem whatsoever. This beginning, for example, for me, absolutely not a problem. And it incorporates a lot of the things that we will talk about in the next sessions, about things in music that help us very much to create that sense of ease naturally in our body based on science, based on anthropology, and in our preconceived education throughout many, many, many centuries. We'll get to that in just one second. But for example, here, not a problem. But you fast forward a bit when the instrumentation starts to get a bit more convoluted. Sounds of instruments in the middle. For me, it would be extremely distracting. So in this case, me as a musician, which has the same right as anyone else to meditate, I might not find it so helpful. And this is why it's important that we are very careful the way that we choose what we do. Last but not least, the acquired taste. We educate our ears to like certain things more than others, and vice versa. And once that we do this, it's very difficult to change our way of thinking. Why do we use music? Or how do we use music to relax? We can do many, many different things, and there is no one fits all solution to when it comes to finding the music that we want to do, or what is that we're looking in music. Some people are trying to disconnect, to use music that relaxes them, music that they absolutely have to do nothing to think about. And though I know that I'm getting myself into maybe perhaps of a fishy territory, I cannot help myself but to think of a very prime example of this type of music. In every time that I approach someone that is not a professional musician and they ask me what I do, and I say, well, I'm a conductor, I'm a professional classical musician, and they go, oh yeah, amazing, I love Ludovico Einaudio's music. And then, of course, this already makes me laugh because, with all the respect to his music, which I happen to like very much, and to his persona as a composer, it is true that a certain sector of the classical music world do not put him on the same level of music seriousness as other composers. And this raises a very interesting question, because here we are on the one hand as the world of professional classical music, and here we are on the other hand as the regular audience. And the regular audience obviously seems to have quite a keen interest or an appreciation. Doesn't mean that they don't get to analyze it, they don't get to say that it's great or too complicated or too easy or too simple or anything. They just happen to like it. And us here on the other hand, we're sometimes thinking maybe this is simple music or it's not developed enough or whatever it is that people might criticize or praise about this music. We have to ask ourselves a very simple question: what it is about Ludovico's music that is effective? And for me, thinking, it comes to a very simple idea. On the one hand, the use of these methods, these acquired education and skills of music that sync and resonate very deeply with us as humans. Again, the primal sounds, the harmonic series, things that we were talking in just a few minutes. On the one hand, obviously, put us in the right state of mind. It's a bit like sugar, People say, well, most people like sugar. I'm still yet to meet someone that doesn't like chocolate. They might not like eating it every day, but they like chocolate. Most people do. And then when actually you start to realize what it is about sugar or about chocolate and the sugar context that it has, then you realize that sugar is designed, it's made to be liked by our body, for us to crave it, for us to to feel withdrawal symptoms when we don't have it, and for us to get happiness out of eating sugar. So of course, everyone wants to eat sugar, and everyone wants to eat candy, and everyone loves eating chocolate. And once that you start, you want to continue. This is a bit of the same concept with music. There are certain songs and certain music that we will like. We're directly and naturally attuned to like. So of course, music like Ludovico's works very well for this. It's not his simplicity. We don't understand. We don't talk in terms of simplicity. We talk in terms of a symbiotic process, we could say. Let me just give you an example. Of course, we think about this music, and me as a professional musician, or someone that has studied music, it's not the kind of music that I want to listen to if I want to be in a good mood, because this music is very introverted. And again, we mustn't make music simple as to say major chords. For those of you that don't know major chords, we can talk about a little bit about this in some of the sessions, but in a sense, chords that sound happy, like we were explaining to young people, and minor chords, combination of notes, we could say, that sound sad. So Ludovico is here using a series of combination of minor chords. And it creates that sense of simplicity paired with this basic concept of music that we'll talk in just 1 second, are things that we naturally are attuned to, and most of his music will be in one way or the other similar. In this case, he hasn't even changed the key, and this is not criticism to him, just saying it happens to be the same. A lot of people, when if you know me as a musician, you'll be fully aware that I'm not per se a. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Sorry, just left for 1 second. For those of you that know me as a musician, know that I'm not a professional pianist by any stretch, but there is a reason why I'm able to very quickly. Oh, I just saw this. Hello, Fabrizio. Thank you for connecting, which is the head of the St. Peter's Center for Mindfulness and Spirituality. Very nice of you to join us, and thank you again for facilitating this little session. As I was saying, if we, me not being a professional pianist, it's simple for me to organize music that is similar to this type of meditation. Let's pick a different key, not to make it sound too much the same. So forth and so on. I don't have to give you a full of demonstration of my medium piano skills, but you get the idea. Once that we understand what it is that comprises this type of music, then it's very easy for us to simulate it and emulate it and do things that are similar. And this is, of course, very, very important. So some people will want to disconnect, and this is why they listen to music like this. They don't want to think. They want to zone out. They want to relax. They want to be calm in the moment of peace and relaxation. Some other people, on the other hand, if we go back to our little presentation, there it is. Thank you very much. Some people use music as a way to connect. So in other words, they use the same repetition patterns. You know, if we go here, yeah. They use that as a sort of a horizontal line, you know, a bit of like a dosing. It's a bit of a chanting. And again, we'll talk about the chanting towards the end of this little taster today. They think about, they use this to sort of go into a zoning in state of relaxing. Or, so in this case, you know, as you can see in the presentation, they are using the harmony to connect into the meditation, to connect into the mindfulness, to get into that deep state of relaxation, to find the balance, the inner balance. Or some people use the melody. So they actually use in this case, the right hand, because I only have four hands, as a link into their meditation. And this is why, if we think about how many people actually benefit much more from the guided meditations than they do from meditating by themselves. And this is not so much because our head is spinning around in 4,000 different ways. This can also happen when you're having a guided meditation. But it is true that sometimes when we have someone helping us through that journey, that we can actually focus our energy and our direction towards that voice, that person that is taking us through the journey. For some of us, we can do the same through the use of melody, as I will show you now in 1 second. This reminds me, and I wanted to just do a bit of a plugin of promo coming up. There will be a video coming very soon, released on the St. Peter Center for Mindfulness and Spirituality, with a guided meditation to help us through these days. That will be posted, I believe, very soon, and I hope that it helps you, that you can use it, and it can be of benefit to you. For all of those of you that are connecting through the promotion of Orchestra Vitae, also one of the things that Orchestra Vitae is organizing these days is a way to connect more personally with our audience, especially in times in which we cannot do that we love most, which is live performances. And we're doing this through our latest initiative, the Concert Champs, which wants to help people that might otherwise will have had not comfortable going to, would not have been comfortable going to concerts by themselves. This project and these initiatives is providing a way for them to feel supported throughout the whole process, so that they really enjoy and they feel a family around the idea of the concert. And for them and for all of you interested, the orchestra will be organizing these virtual soirees interspersed throughout, throughout the coming weeks, for some people to sign up and have an intimate and direct relationship with the musicians. Like I said, we are really interested in making a connection and making a change for people through classical music. So keep an eye on both of them. I will also put at the end, or when I put the Spotify playlist, I will also put you both websites, to the center as well as to the orchestra, in case that you haven't had a chance to look through and navigate yourself through these wonderful websites. So let me play you now a track in which, again, we are prompted to meditation, firstly through a very simple music on. So look how simple it is, and we'll come back to it at the end, and you'll see how suddenly you have a completely different view or enhanced view of what you're listening to. On the one hand, repetition, simplicity, nothing It's even simple in the way that the hand works. Normally you can play chords in music. You can move your hand around the piano, which is not the most intuitive way because you want to minimize it. And what a way, how cleverly Arvo Part, which is the composer of this song, Spiegel in Spiegel, does it. The thumb always, excuse me, the thumb is always the same song. And then on the left hand, he uses primal sounds that relate to the harmonic series, which we'll talk in a moment. And you'll see how it reverses, and suddenly you go, wow, of course, makes perfect sense. So he starts here. That sense of ground, putting us all the way at the bottom of the piano, boom. And then the violin is the melody that helps us to connect our meditation. As a matter of fact, in one of the workshops I did, I walked people, I almost tricked people in their emotional state by simply walking them through the meditation that I was doing. So in other words, by playing this music alongside my conversation, trying to suggest in a way an emotional response that I could create. This is one of the beautiful things of music. I'm not saying that music manipulates people, but it is true that it brings, depends on the music, it can bring really deep emotions within. Let's have a quick listen to Speaker and Speaker. And now I ask you all to close your eyes. And feel for a moment all that connection to all of the people that you absolutely love and you cannot hold these days because of the distance, the separation. How hard you want to kiss them again, hug them, tell them in person that you love them. There's a distance that we cannot cross and change. Until these difficult times pass. I almost feel like I want to play a bit of happy music to sort of get us out of this scene, but you get the idea. Music, it's very powerful, and choosing wisely help us very much to one direction or the other. So another way that people use another way that I hope that you can, let's see if we can go down there. So I feel like another way that the people can use music is through natural sounds. So natural sounds is something that we have evolved through history and through many generations and evolved as humans to be quite naturally inclined to like. I personally struggle very much with it, and I suspect if some of you have a little bit of frequent trips to the bathroom, probably not the best music to fall asleep to. Sounds of cascades and music pouring down, because it might actually make you go much quicker than you ever wanted or would have expected. But some people, believe it or not, are very happy to meditate with music like this. I would find it very, very disturbing, but it is nonetheless a valid point. And lastly, some people like to meditate to primal sounds. And again, this brings us back to the more technical last part of this brief introduction that we will talk more about on the next session. Primal sounds are sounds, in other words, that we are naturally programmed to develop as human beings. Sounds that bring us comfort, and sounds that make us almost regress back into our baby infant states. They're the first sounds that we produce. And there is a very interesting book that I wanted to show all of you here, if you can see well. It's not a book, it's actually a talk. So Leonard Bernstein is one of the people I admire most. Great composer, conductor, pedagogue, musicologist, you name him, he was it. He gave these talks at the University of Harvard in the US called The Unanswered Question. And he talks a lot about the philosophical things of music and how hi Lucia. It talks about all these, how music has evolved through centuries into what we have right now. And one of the first things he talks in his first he talks about in his first talk is the concept of primal sound. So these are sounds that we develop innately and naturally without anyone telling us. And he talks very much about how it is that before globalization started, and nowadays, of course, how globalization can work very well and very good things that we've seen, and also not so good, like we sadly have seen recently. The globalization has its good and bad things. But back then, when there wasn't this easy way to access the whole world and travel and be in all different places at once, yet every single civilization develops similar language skills for certain words that have been the same, even though we were so far apart. For instance, Europe is not precisely the farthest, but we have in German you say Mutter, in Spanish you say madre, mama, in French you say mère, in Italian mama, in you name it, in English mother, in Slavic languages as well, mama. It's all always has the same origin, and he talks about the idea of this sound ma, the sound ma as being one of the first sounds that we as humans produce, as babies produce when we start developing pa, ma, sounds that are comfort. This type of idea is fascinating, to think that this actually can have many, many years later when we are adults, it can have such an impact on the way that we perceive music. And this is a little bit of why some people really find it helpful, the chanting, sounds, for two reasons. One, it reminds us to our primal instincts as babies. It brings us back to a very grounded state of comfort, protection. And also because we vibrate. And after all, we as humans are vibrating bodies, we are vibrating frequencies, we are nothing but matter. And as such, there are certain frequencies that help us more than others. So anything that puts us in a vibration state, when we produce that sound, our vocal cords are already vibrating. And our vocal cords, which are, of course, our prime way of communication, are engaged. This is another reason why choral music, which we started this whole broadcast having a little bit of, is so naturally attuned to our bodies, because we are much more interested to the sounds that we can relate to. And in a sense, it's I see that Lucia is connected. I must say that this is one of the reasons why the viola can be such a powerful instrument, because the viola is one of the closest instruments to the human voice in this range. And as such, it has that nature that, I can only imagine playing a viola, how much it must feel in synchronization with your body, naturally to it. And I'm sure Lucia can attest to that and agree with us. So let me just play you a little quick This song combines three of the things that we like most, which is the let's see if I can find my screen. There you go. we find on the one hand low sounds boom, on octaves, which we're about to talk about, and then we have the primal sounds, and then the water nature sound in a very steady way. So it's a recipe for success in this case. So this might be one of the tracks that everyone feels very comfortable listening to when they're meditating, because of these things that are actually we are naturally inclined to like. It will be almost impossible to think that we do not that we don't like this music. I mean, you can tell me in the comments if you do not like it, but for me, I would say 95% of people feel very comfortable listening to this. Unless that you think it's silly, you might not like it. But in other words, you naturally find it helpful for your meditation practices. Understanding music helps us to choose better the music that we do. And I cannot emphasize this enough in our first session today, because what I want people to get out of this, on top of a little bit of time spent in company, and please, next time you tell me in advance so that we can have an open conversation, so that even in the distance we can be engaging in a way. And I think that is the whole purpose of should be the whole purpose of these little gatherings that are not meant for thousands of people, but rather for those that can actually find benefit in them. But in this, if this session helps you start to understand how you can choose your music better, or very quickly discard those that don't serve you, then it will of course be a good use time. So one of the concepts that I wanted to talk about today, very briefly, just to give you a snapshot of some of the things that you might have never even thought about, is the concept of the harmonic series. Because the harmonic series is, again, based on vibration, and we are, after all, are vibrating bodies, so we are more attuned to certain vibrations. And I've talked in the past also about the concept of the frequency of sound, the tuning of the music that we listen to, and how this can actually have a positive impact. And we will talk a little bit about whether some of these claims about the 432 gigahertz being the ultimate vibrating frequency of the music that resonates best with our body, if it is true or not, if there is a little bit of truth, or if it's all a bunch of speculation. We will untangle some of these mysteries, again, to help you best to make a decision. But the harmonic series, it is fundamentally a reality of the string theory. When we create the sound, as the strings start breaking in the different patterns that you see in that picture, it produces a series of sounds ascending in frequency, and the higher the frequency, the higher the pitch. This, you don't even need to be a scientist. My science skills and knowledge is very limited, but I even understand this. So the first one, next one, those are the sounds that can be produced out of a single sound, and that is the basis for all Western music. And what I mean by Western music is not just Mozart, Beethoven, and Penderecki, but I also talk about anyway going to Ariana Grande or Bruno Mars or Billie Eilish. They all use the same principle, which is this principle of sounds put in a certain order, logical by nature. Let me play them again for you. Those sounds divert from this very first prime sound that we have at the top all the way to the bottom. And why am I talking about this to you? Not because I want to give you a bit of a lesson in theory, but because it makes perfect sense to us that these sounds, which vibrate and resonate with our bodies and resonate and are things that are in nature, that we found in nature, that are not altered, the bigger and the more grounding they are, the more it gives us a sense of ground and beginning. And as such, all these songs tend to use the same here. Sounds at the bottom, sounds that are separated on the first structures of this sequence of harmonic series, not so much on the upper ones. So you find a lot of open fifths. And octaves. And this we saw in the Ludovico Einaudi. And let me go back to it very quickly. Sorry, on the Spiegel and Spiegel by Arvo Part. It starts with the repetitive thing, which is based on the triads, which is a chord made out of the most fundamental notes that divert from this harmonic series. And then at the bottom, an octave, very low into that ground, give us a sense of gravitas and a sense of calmness. Listen to it again. Whoa, that's not the one. This is the one. See, and every time that we levitate a bit with the melody to give us that sense of meditation, boom, it sounds again, giving us that sense of resurgence, that sense of meditation and ease that automatically, those sounds automatically, this is what I need to trying to enforce. This is not a matter of choice and taste. It's a choice of what we're attuned to, naturally attuned to, will give us that sense of relax. And this is important that we take into consideration in moments like nowadays when we really want to relax and use music for beneficial results. So very quickly, the primal sense we spoke about, and I hope, I don't want to take any more of your time. I think there's been more than enough, and I hope that it's been somehow informative to you. The next session that we will be doing will be next Thursday, April 2nd at 7 p.m. I will, of course, talk a little bit more about this. And this is where we will start examining part by part, more specifically, some of the music that we can use to meditate, particularly do a couple of exercises, each one of them based very much on the type of music that we are choosing. Because I think that it's also important, that if you're choosing sounds that already prompt us to a state of ease and meditation, that they don't necessarily have to have a lot of guided meditation. If we are using the melody to engage, then guided meditation might be helpful. Or if we're trying to really focus on the low sounds, then also we have to pay attention to the type of voice that we want to listen to. Because if we don't think about these things, then we will not know what choices we can make to serve us better. Because sometimes, we say, I don't like this, or I don't like this. But always ask yourself why. And if you ask yourself why, then you don't have to make too many trips of this guessing before you actually get it right. And this applies to everything in life, of course, in life. I want to thank you again very much for being here. It's a pleasure spending some time with you all, even if virtually. And I hope that this has been somewhat useful. You can leave your comments. And I'm going to leave you again with a beautiful song of vocal works. I'm about to put right now, as soon as I finish this broadcast, I will put a link to the podcast. The playlist, so that you can listen to some of them if you happen to have wonderful, Fabrizio. So there is the Spotify playlist, and I will now put very quickly, there it is. Just give me 1 second to learning my way. So this podcast will be and that's the Center for St. Peter's and Orchestra, and Orchestra Vitas as well. Please stay in touch. We'll be posting more about our events, and there it is. I look forward to seeing you again. Please like I said, the whole point of these videos is, of course, to help some of you that might be finding this beneficial to your mindful music and mindfulness practices. Also, really important to reach out to those that might actually not have the same ability to be connected in the world like we do. And for those, I really hope that we can help them out and that we can reach out to them. If you have a lot of people that are isolated by themselves, don't forget to give them a call. As much as you can, be there for them, and let's take care of one another, and especially we can do so through music. Look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening. Thank you.